Are you struggling to pay your musicians and techs?
Well, the good news is you don't have to anymore.
In the next few minutes, we're going to show you how to build a thriving worship and tech culture without relying on paying contractors.
And if you're wondering why that's even a good idea in the first place, then stick around.
Let's dive in. Well, hey everybody, welcome to the MxU podcast, where we help you and your worship ministry achieve excellence every single week, starting this week. So I'm Spencer DeYoung, and I'm with a man that really needs no introduction, Jeff Sandstrom.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, it's good to be back. I'm really excited about today's topic because I think it's really important as we talk about culture and talk about, how we're really striving to help churches build healthy teams. I think a big part of that is how we engage volunteers.
Yeah. I've had this conversation so many times with churches. They feel stuck. It's this like vicious cycle of, okay, we need results on Sunday, but this whole idea of developing volunteers is a long game, which is why it's so important that we stop that vicious cycle and start somewhere, right?
So and I think a lot of times teams feel guilty because they can't afford to pay key players, whether that's a drummer or a front of house engineer or a video director. It's like they have key players that they feel like there's a need for a role that has maybe a different level of excellence than a greeter or even a pro presenter op might need to have. Yeah. And so there's this tension of, okay, if I can't afford to pay certain key team members, then our whole service quality is going to suffer. And then if it suffers, it's a reflection on me as the leader. And, there's this just push and pull constantly of, okay, I want to pour into people, but I feel guilty if we're not achieving the right level of excellence. Yeah. So we gotta figure out how to help people manage that better.
So let's talk about contractor culture versus volunteer culture.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a big difference between contractor culture and volunteer culture. Contractors show up for a paycheck, ultimately.
Yeah.
Right? And volunteers show up to serve.
Yeah. I think, the key thing for a contractor is, what am I getting out of this? The key thing for a volunteer is, what am I giving to this? And I think, there is a tension there, right? But I think if we can lean more toward serving and more toward what am I giving to the ministry and how can I be a part of the ministry as a function of what God wants me to do in terms of my spiritual development. We've said it before. I really believe that, serving is just as important as attendance and tithing and, being a part of a small group. It's like serving is a spiritual discipline as much as any of those other things. So how can we give people an opportunity to grow in their faith through serving? And sometimes that might come at the expense of how we approach our service quality, how we approach the culture in general, what we're maybe willing to compromise in terms of where the bar is set for excellence. Not that those things aren't important, but I think it's just an important conversation to have.
Yeah.
To go, okay, are we creating a culture that is moving people toward this sort of mentality of the importance of serving?
Yeah. Yeah, because it can be really easy. Contractors, I don't want to villainize contractors.
No, not at all.
It can be easy to villainize contractors, and I don't want you to hear that. But it can be really easy to fall into this culture of gig workers, essentially.
Yeah.
Right? Showing up on Sunday and treating it just like showing up at the bar on Friday night to play with the band.
Yeah. I've been around churches where, everybody on stage was paid, and they treated it like that, where it was, I'm just showing up for a check. There was not a whole lot of sense of community. There wasn't a whole lot of sense of being a part of something. There wasn't a sort of all hands on deck mentality of, gosh, if something goes wrong on stage, if there's a patch that's missed or there's a hum or a buzz, somebody might just stand back and go, well, somebody needs to fix this for me because I'm here to play my guitar and I'm not here to troubleshoot. Well, that's not creating a culture of community and family and togetherness and mission and vision. It's like it's too easy to become siloed, and it's too easy to not be aligned around any sort of common mission at all, and that's dangerous for a church team.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about why it's so hard to build volunteer culture, right? Like it can feel like there is an exception for worship teams because of the skill that is required.
Yeah.
Rarely are there people paid to serve in kids ministry or on a greeting team.
Right. Nobody in the parking lot waving cars into the appropriate section of the parking lot is looking for a check.
Yeah.
You may pay a police officer for traffic management and ingress and egress for your services, but that's a different thing. Mm-hmm. You don't have somebody in the parking lot who's going, man, I hope they go an extra hour long today because I'm going to get an extra $12. It's just that doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But somehow with worship and production, there's this. It's a different mentality because the barrier of entry is so much higher, because they are. You do have to have a level of expertise to be able to, be an MD, to be a great drummer. They've invested years in their craft, even to be a good audio mixer. We've said a lot around here how audio is such a long game. You've got to have thousands of reps to truly be excellent at a sort of touring level, concert level engineer. So there's a tension there because you want somebody who is really good at what they do and that they've been able to hone their craft. But it's harder to find that person than it is to find somebody who can just smile at the door and shake people's hands.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is a real tension, the skill gap. In the description below, we actually linked a volunteer development toolkit. Will kind of help you get on the right foot in worship and tech ministry. Because sometimes we just don't even know what are the right steps we can take to move away from a contract-based culture and start building a volunteer culture. But let's talk about the volunteer myth. Okay, so there's a myth that says, if I don't pay, I will not get quality. We've seen that, Jeff, with thousands of churches to not be true.
Yeah, and I think the truth is that volunteers who are invested and trained sometimes and often can go even further than someone who's just there for the check because of the softer skills that are involved. It's because they're a part of a team. They're a part of a vision that's aligned with their personal vision for their family and why they're invested in this church in the first place, why they come to this place, like what they want to see happen among this body of believers. It's like they're digging in and working harder and maybe working more on their training to get better because they want to see the quality of everything around them in the church be raised.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't tell you the amount of stories I have over HVAC guys, plumbers, mechanics who just started serving as an audio technician in the church who are now full-time audio technicians training other people in audio. Yeah. So everybody starts somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's our story. I served as a volunteer and then grew to other roles in the church because I developed those passions as a volunteer. So to say that you're not going to get good quality out of volunteers is just not true. It might not be day one that you get good quality,
right?
But you will eventually if you develop those people.
Yeah, and it's really about developing a strategy for building them up and building their skill. At my church, we have, 4 or 5 key volunteers in the audio team who have gotten really good. Yeah. Like, we have systems in place and we have ways to sort of make it easy for them to get good results. But even within that, even within the confines of a really good console file, I've seen them get better in terms of their understanding of what they're listening to and how tonality can be shaped through EQ and compression and those things that they may have been a little more unaware of a couple of years ago, but because of the reps they're getting, because of the training they're getting, because of just some of the mentoring they're getting from me and other staff people, they really are taking it to a whole nother level for their own experience of what serving can be. And it really sounds good.
That's really good. Okay, let's talk about the short-term fix versus long-term health. Okay, so
short-term, it's easy to just pay somebody.
Exactly,
right? It's
like
give them a check because then it's off my plate. It's out of sight, out of mind, and you have built-in accountability.
Yeah,
it's like, well, the results better be good because I'm paying you. So
yeah. So the question, I guess, is, Jeff, is it is it okay for a season to maybe rely on some of that short-term fix while you invest in the long-term health of your team?
I think you have to. I mean, I think if you're a church plant, if you're brand new, if you're set up, tear down every week, you're launching a new ministry, you might need to bring in a professional to help, organize a system, figure out how we're going to pack the truck, figure out how we're going to, set this up, plug everything in, get it working, get it up and running in 30 minutes every Sunday. Like, you need somebody who has enough experience to pull that off. And I think to pay them for that is totally fine, as long as they're bringing other people around them. They're investing in engaging a team as well as just doing a job. Because I think if I were to hire somebody, what I would really want to hire them for is to help me build a team.
Yeah, develop others.
Yeah, develop others.
Because ultimately, that's where your long-term health is going to come from. When volunteers are discipled and invested in and trained, they stick. They stick around. And then you don't have this burning tension of needing a short-term fix.
Right.
So let's get super practical. Someone listening might be thinking, cool, but I don't have anybody. What do I do?
Yeah.
Jeff, what are some easy tactics, maybe not even easy, but just clear tactics that somebody can use to get people who are already in their church involved on the worship and tech team?
One thing that could be helpful is to find a few key people who are already invested somehow. They're involved in serving, maybe they are, part of a core team of people who've been around for a long time. They have a heart for the ministry. They understand the vision of the church. It's like, pull them in. Maybe somebody who is an engineer or who is, their day job is involved in technology. Maybe they're an IT person or somebody who is already drawn to tech in the first place. Or that they're a musician hobbyist. Any of those things. But at its core, you have to get to know people. I mean, there has to be a relational awareness to go, hey, I've heard that so-and-so, plays guitar as a hobby. Okay, well, let's bring him in and see if they might want to serve here. But I think just starting small and then realizing that part of their engagement on the team is to help recruit for the future. Yeah. If everyone on the team knew that part of their, quote, job description was to find somebody else who they could bring alongside them to show them what it is that they do, whether it's graphics or camera or audio, whatever the role is, especially in production. You might not be able to bring a friend to teach them how to play guitar, but in production, I think it's easy to bring somebody alongside, whether it's a person from a small group, a friend, somebody from work, whoever. It's like, hey, I'm doing this. Let me show you what it is that I do, so that a year from now or 6 months from now, we can double the size of our team because everybody's investing in someone else.
Yeah. I think it's really important to prioritize character when you're recruiting new people. Oftentimes people in leadership positions in worship and tech ministry are thinking, all right, where's the pot at the end of the rainbow of guitar players in our congregation? Yeah. Where are the people who drum? Oftentimes, you just need to look for people who have character and get to know them. We always say, send a spotlight text. What that means is notice, hey, John shows up every week, and after church, he tears down chairs after the service. And just a super servant-hearted dude. Like, he seems he's fully bought into the mission of our church. Wonder if he's serving anywhere. Reach out to John and say, hey, John, I noticed this about you. I noticed that you're always staying after church, tearing down chairs. I think you might be a great fit for the worship and tech team. And then invite him to come hang out for an hour on the weekend. Be like, just learn what we do. Maybe in that moment, you're going to realize, oh, John actually played guitar at a former church like 5 years ago, but he thought he wouldn't fit on the team because he plays acoustic guitar and you guys never have acoustic guitar players. Well, yeah, you don't have any acoustic guitar players because
you haven't met John yet.
Yeah, you haven't met John yet. You don't have any acoustic guitar players.
Yeah.
So then you find that out, and then you develop them with an intentional training program, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you don't know how to do that, welcome to MxU. And head to getmxu.com. You'll learn a ton about how to develop a training program. All that to say, there's so many practical steps you can take, but it all starts with the relationship and seeking out people with character, not just chasing skills.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is, as you find those people, it's it's imperative that they understand the vision.
Yeah.
It's not just saying, hey, can you help? Because we need you to fill the skill gap. It's like, no, here's why this matters. Here's why this is helping our church point toward our vision for this community. What you're doing is actually helping to facilitate worship. As a ProPresenter operator, you're also a worship leader because you're helping people know how to anticipate the next words of the song and how to know what to sing when and those kinds of things. It's like, the vision, we're recruiting toward a purpose. We're not just recruiting for a task. Mm-hmm. So communicating vision is so important because that will leak. That's contagious. Mm-hmm. So then when you get John to play guitar, he might say, gosh, this is great. I know another guitar player. Mm-hmm. And especially if your musicians are of good quality, high quality, talent attracts talent. So as you build a team that is actually good, you're going to attract other people who are good. Good singers are going to bring in good singers. It's just the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about fast forward. We spent a couple years working on our long-term healthy volunteer culture.
Yeah.
The fruit, the payoff that we experienced in that, Jeff. What experiences have you been a part of where you're like, this team could run forever? Like we've got all the positions filled. Like, is that even possible? Have you seen it done?
I think so. I mean, I think, there's several aspects of what a healthy team, what the fruit looks like. I think there's technically sharp, but there's also spiritually healthy and relationally connected, right? There's, the best teams are those who are relationally just one.
Yeah.
Because they're connected around vision, they're good friends, they've had time around a table at a team night where they can actually build relational capital with each other and, get to know each other beyond the skill set of what's required to execute a task. And, if we cast vision the right way and they see their serving as an act of spiritual obedience, then the spiritual health of the team is there as well. So then when life happens, we have a guy on our team whose wife was diagnosed with cancer. Everybody on the team swooped in and cared for that family like you've never seen. Well, he's going to be a part of our team forever because of the way he and his wife felt the care that came from people ministering to them that had nothing to do with technology, but had everything to do with relational health and spiritual health. So if we get this right, you talk about fruit. The thing about fruit is that it doesn't just bear more fruit. It bears the seeds of more fruit. So it's exponential, right? You're not just, an orange just doesn't make another orange. There are dozens of seeds within that orange that can make potentially thousands of oranges down the road. So again, it is a long game. It takes time, but nurturing that, watering that, investing in that will pay huge dividends exponentially.
Yeah. That's really wise. Okay. So if you're in a place where you don't have budget to pay your team, don't see it as a limitation, right? Let's see it as an opportunity to invite people who are already in our church to be a part of what God is doing in our ministry.
Yeah.
Right.
It's an invitation to build something, not just to build something that makes Sunday happen, but to build something that lasts, something that helps form people, something that, develops people technically, spiritually, relationally, not just filling a slot in planning center, not just checking a box. It may be that you do need to check a box in the short term, right? I think, I was a part of a team once where they were a brand new church and they had all these roles that they had to fill, and there were a couple people. So they put each other's names in all the boxes, and their job was to take their name out of a box, replace their name with somebody else. I mean, if you're in a beginning stage, that might be where you find yourself. But as you start to replace those boxes, take your name out, put somebody else's name in, it's a great opportunity to build something that's built around more than just the task.
Well, we hope that this podcast has helped you gain clarity on some of those baby steps we can take towards building a long-term volunteer culture and not have to rely on contractors as short-term fixes. I mentioned earlier a volunteer development toolkit. Please utilize that as you're navigating this new journey of developing a long-term volunteer culture on your team. As always, go to getmxu.com if you want to learn more about how you can train every skilled position on your team with sustainability and get your time back. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys next on the MxU podcast.